Hey, Franciska.
Hi, Nadine.
How are you?
I'm good. It's sunny. I feel very excited to be here. How are you?
Oh my goodness. I was saying to you this morning that, I had an element of sadness. Sometimes you can feel these kind of different colors around how you're
Mm,
feeling.
mm,
And so today I'm just sitting with that, and just looking at what that feels like for me and just allowing it to process through. I'm not running away from it. I'm not trying to bat it out the way, but I'm just sitting with that feeling and just
mm,
processing, and it's okay.
mm.
I don't have much ever to kind of, I don't come upon these places much. So when I do come across this place, it's just good to just sit in it and just recognize it and allow it to
Yes.
pass, because it will pass,
Oh, of
you know.
course. Yes, for sure.
So but yeah, so we met via Twitter.
It's where everyone meets nowadays, I feel, because we're not allowed to go to pubs. So yeah, we met on Twitter.
On Twitter, and then you spoke to me about this wonderful podcast that you're doing that will be coming out very soon. I'm so excited about that, dealing with people and the arts and technology. So that's really fantastic to be able to be a part of that and to have spent some
Yeah.
time on your show. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I was looking for someone, who's in opera, but also does other things. And I was really interested in your coaching. So I think it was a really good episode as well. I was really excited about it.
No, I loved it. Thank you. So, good morning, everybody. I am Nadine Benjamin, and I just love being in a space where, and of the belief that everybody can. I love to see people empowered, and I love walking into a space within my coaching world and my singing world and everywhere that I'm kind of taking people always on a journey from self-sabotage to self-mastery. I love connecting people, championing people, and celebrating people. And I am a certified high performance coach. I'm a professional soprano, and I'm also an NLP mind coach. NLP, neuro, the brain, linguistic, how we speak to the brain, programming, about your limited, but you can sometimes feel patterns or paradigms, or your limitless patterns or paradigms that you don't know yet. So I love working with people around those things, and mentorship is really, really important to me. So this morning, in that championship and celebration, I am joined by Franciska Ery, and I'm so happy to have her on here today. And we're going to be having a lovely conversation about the arts. I haven't had one of these for quite a while. Actually, I've had many other people on, and in their chosen profession. But to actually just stay within the arts today is quite exciting, and just to open up a new world. So hi, Franciska.
Hi, that was such a great introduction. You were just saying your previous guests, I looked at this amazing lineup you've had and I felt like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. So thank you so much for the privilege and the honor.
Not at all, not at all. We would love to find out about you. So, and please, everybody who's here or is watching, please feel free to ask Franciska questions if you'd like, and she will answer them if she can. Okay. So, how did theatre and opera become a part of your journey?
Well, it kind of was always there. I kind of started performing when I came out of my mother, I think. So it was kind of like, I was just like, yep, let's do it. Theater, that's what we're doing. And I wanted to be an actor. And when I graduated, I went to an American school in Moscow. And I had an amazing drama teacher who said, I think you should go to London. I think you should try drama school. So it started with a mentor, really, someone who really believed in me. And I didn't get into drama school, thankfully, because instead I went to Queen Mary University, where I was met by these amazing performance artists. These were people who were incredibly, top of their field, really bold work, really out there work. And it really taught me that theater is not just, something on a pros. It can be anything. And it really brought me out of my comfort zone. And then I remember I went to see Titus Andronicus at the Globe with my friends, and we went to the restaurant later, and I just grabbed a napkin, drew a little shape on it, and I said, if I directed it, it would look a little bit like this. And that completely changed gears for me. You know, I self-produced it. I started working. And opera is a bit of a recent endeavor. So I think the first time I was in an opera house, I must have been like 4. You know, I've loved opera. I mean, I don't have to explain it to you, like how amazing opera is.
Oh no, but explain it to everybody else, because we love hearing these stories of, you know,
Yes.
maybe what was your first opera and what did it feel like, and you know.
I think the first opera I actually saw live was Janacek's Cunning Little Vixen in Sweden.
Oh.
And my mom loves to tell this story. Apparently, months later, the overture or one part of the opera was playing the radio, and recognized it, and she was like, "A wunderkind," you know. And she's a musical person. But I just really loved opera, and I never really put the two together. That what I love, I can also work in. I think this is a common mistake. You know, you idolize something, but you never actually think that, oh, I could walk through that door. And what actually happened was, yeah.
No, please,
and,
can I just stop you there, because I think
yeah.
you just said something really paramount. I don't know who's saying hi there, but I'm saying hi to you back. Somebody's just said hi, Nadine, and I'm saying hi back, hi back, hi back. It's really imperative what you've just said. That you've just said that, you know, I had the belief that the thing that I idolized or loved, I didn't believe that it was okay for me to work at that thing. I really just wanted to slow that down a little bit, and just, you know, and see how it resonates with other people listening or watching, you know, that actually giving yourself permission. What are you not giving yourself permission to do because you think it's outside of your zone, or you don't deserve it, or, you know, just know that you do. So thank you so much. So tell us the rest. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly as you said, I needed guidance to understand that actually it's not that scary. Because I think when you're a theater director coming into opera, it feels very different. The dynamics are different. You know, you have music in the room. There's language that you probably don't speak yet, which is, I'm talking about the musical technical language. You don't really know what the, you know, the relationship between you and the rep should be. So there were a lot of things. The only reason why I learned this is because it's down to Amy Lane. Shout out to Amy Lane from, well, shout out to Amy Lane, who organized this amazing workshop together with the Young Vic Theatre, where theatre directors could see how opera directors work. It was a day's workshop. So we saw Jared Jones, or little Richard Jones, work with singers. And that was, I remember it was like click in my brain. I was like, I want to do this. That surely this is what, you know, when I was 4, I was lip syncing to Carmen in my little red dress, you know, and I was directing. That's what I was doing. So I remember that I got to see the other Richard Jones rehearsing his Bohème on the main stage. And you see this amazing, huge machine, which is what opera is really, like these big sets coming in, and music and sound and lights. And he just lifts a finger and the whole machine goes whoa, 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 to a halt, you know? And he just stands up and rushes with his like team of assistants onto the stage to fix tiny things. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to be able to do this. So everything just, so I can fix something, go back and enjoy it. So since then, another shout out to NOS, National Opera Studio. That's where I got my first gig as an assistant. I learned I'm still learning the terms and the terminology. And since then, I've been totally sold all the way.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. So can you explain exactly what do you perceive that a director is really supposed to do? How a director is supposed to show up?
Ooh, yes. What a good question. So many things. I mean, it will be different for everyone. It depends on your practice. Phila Deloy, this incredible director, said this amazing thing, which I keep in my mind all the time, that the rehearsal room you're creating should be a miniature version of the world you want your family to live in.
Wow, amazing. Say that again.
The rehearsal room that you're creating should be the miniature version of the world you want your family to live in. Wow. Isn't that amazing? It's just so simple. It comes with practice. So what sort of practice is in the room? It's about respect, mutual respect between performers, between crew, cast, everyone. It talks about how you show up, your preparation. talks about flexibility, because you have to be very flexible. Things will change all the time, and you just have to respond. I'm a very performer, maybe because I used to perform, I'm a very performer-focused director. So whatever you bring, I want to work with that. I want to know what you're feeling about your role. I want to be able to pause everything and say, you in the back corner, what are you feeling now? Because you're part of everything. You can't just, perform and be there and leave. Everyone's input is important. So I just really love that idea that you create a respectful environment that's creative and allows for failure, because failure is very important in process. We both know that. But you kind of have to guide that. You have to show up and have all the answers in a way that even if you don't have the answers, you have something to offer. If you get a question, where you're like, which shoe, all the way to what's my biggest, flaw as a character, it might be very difficult, and you might be a bit like, you haven't thought about that. You just say, let me get back to you tomorrow. And at home, you can figure it all out. So I think it's a very multifaceted role, I'd say.
Yeah, and in relation to the work, what do you define the job of a director?
You mean the actual work that's being made?
Yeah.
Well, for me, concept is a big part of that. Maybe because I'm more veering towards opera, and obviously we know that the canon is so overly saturated that sometimes the idea is very centralized in that. So you say, if you want to do La Boheme in a swimming pool, that's the concept, I guess. It has to make sense in every point. So I would rather not watch that or make that, but you know what I mean? So in relation to the work, I think it is definitely the concept, and then the execution in a way that is, sometimes I just watch lighting designers work just for fun. Like, how do you actually light a moment? Where does it start? Where does it end? How long is the fade time? You have to be interdisciplinary about this, because the next time you want to create a moment, you're going to be creating it with a lighting designer and say, here, I want here to be something. If you just say, I want it here to be very romantic or whatever, that's not very technical, is it? But if you're very specific about what you want, and that goes to costume, that goes to dance, that goes to singing. I love to go to music calls if opera singers allow me to, because I just love to listen what the rep says, where are the important parts, because that means that dramaturgically, I will be able to say, remember when the rep said this, that's how the action marries that, In opera,
that's wonderful.
You get a lot of information with opera, really. Well, you're collaborating with an old, dead person, really, who's been dead for a long time. That's the composer, that's who you're collaborating with. So
sometimes because there are a lot of new voices as well, so we've got these, and I think that's what our time is asking of us right now, is to start bringing out these new voices into the world. I think in the traditional set, I think you're right, we are kind of interpreting or listening on the page for what we perceive as meant to be made, and then to give it our own stance into that space. So there is this marriage, as you say. But it's a very interesting subject, that, isn't it, about is the work perceived, is the work interpreted, is the work lived, is the world actioned, or is the world a concept, or is the world there are so many avenues into this space, aren't there?
Yes, definitely.
And it can be a multidisciplinary of all of them as well, so
exactly, as you said, there's a lot of new work happening, which I'm very excited about, and I'm actually in the midst of looking for a composer myself, because we are collaborating with this amazing singer, Sinead O'Kelly. We're thinking about making a very feminist triple bill of work. And the third one, we wanted to be a new commission. And it's exactly as you said, we were thinking, well, new work allows us to talk very actively with the composer about what we actually want to be saying. And I think that is the future of opera, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So Hugh Clifford is saying, hi, Franciska and Nadine. Thank you for sharing your discussion this lovely morning. Hey, Hugh, lovely to see you this morning. So let's go into this world of socially distanced opera. What do you mean by that? What's been going on? Let us into this world, which we've had to meet on so many levels.
Yeah, so actually socially distanced theater is what I would rather talk about, because opera, I think, is a completely different. I think spray and opera, that's what studies are showing, are a bit more tricky. So you actually have to be a bit more distanced and all that. And actually I haven't had the chance to work. I've done a short piece, which was filmed. So that's a bit different than actually live opera. But with theater, basically I'm no expert on this, right? So I'm just going to give you my experience. I was kind of swept away by COVID, and I was living in London, and suddenly I was just visiting home for a week. You know, I packed a suitcase full of like week-long clothes, and that was it. And then COVID happened, so I'm still here. You know, that was a year ago, and I got this ask by an amazing artistic director. If I was interested in making something social distanced. He said, the only thing he said is that we need to use headphones in it and we need live performers. That was really important. So no pre-recording, none of that. I mean, what an amazing challenge, right? You were just like, and this was 2020 May. So there wasn't really any work happening. I didn't really have any guidance from anyone because there was no one to look. There were no models really for this. So it was terrifying. But also super exciting. And I think what I was thinking about with socially distanced theater was that I wanted to make something that put safety first, but it didn't undermine the work itself. So it was still conceptually very strong and solid. And I think I was thinking a lot about headphones and like how we can use it. And then this whole idea came up of a cupboard theater, so to speak. So I put all the actors behind these glass walls, and they were inside the building, and the audience was sitting outside, safely apart, listening in. So we did this really incredible experiment, because that's what really was, and we didn't really know if it was going to work. And I remember, Nadine, I was so terrified. You know, I was sitting in my little room with my little script, about to go to my read through, and I was, you know, that feeling when you're sitting at the edge of a cliff and you feel like you're going to fall over. I was vividly feeling that in my brain, and I was like, I even thought, it was like, I haven't even signed a contract yet. I'm just going to leave for a second. I was like, what if I just left? I genuinely was so terrified, because I think in my brain, I knew it was going to be massive. I knew in my head, and I mean, today is a joyous day for us and for the people who worked on this production, because we got nominated for an award, and today is our award ceremony. So fingers crossed we will actually win something. Yeah. So imagine this, you know, it's my first time directing in my home country in Hungarian. I don't know any of the words, you know, because my theater language is in English. So I didn't know the culture. You know, in Europe, I'm sure it's in different countries as well. You work from 10 till 2 and then 6 till 10 again, which means that you have to, as a director, you're switched on from 10 to 10 really, because in the break, the assistant says, could you look at this costume? Could you look at this space? Could you look at this tech? And I was exhausted. And one thing, and this is another shout out, this is an episode of shout outs. One thing that really helped me through is that I had this incredible experience. We were coached, a group of us, by Katie Mitchell. This was Elaine Kidd creating this program through the Yetta Parker Young Artist Program. And Katie saw me on Zoom. Well, she saw the state I was in, I think. So she just said, here's my number. And anytime you feel, you know, you're not alone in this. So this is really important. And she ended up coaching me through it. I mean, she gave incredible advice, but also stuff that wasn't even about directing. She was like, have you eaten today? What have you eaten? You know, how have you slept? Are you taking care of yourself? So isn't that incredible that we're not alone in this? You don't have to make theater alone. You know, directing is such a lonely profession, but I'm sure you've noticed this during COVID. I think so many people started connecting and supporting each other and saying, actually, how are you getting through this? So that is a little segue. Sorry, that was just a little. Like,
no, it's really. I'm gonna come back to you there, because I love that there's two things that you mentioned, is that thing of, you know, being terrified, and you had that moment where you were gonna run out of the room because it was the first time you were really making your new work, and you know, I had that with Beam. You know, I'd just done a 4-day R&D, and then all of a sudden I was just going to tell my whole life story on stage, and you know, on as in a showing for the 5th day, and I looked at the stairs, because there was the stairs out of the theatre, and the show was just about to go up. And I was like, I went to the stairs and started climbing them. If I leave now, it would be almost as if it didn't happen. And it really wouldn't matter.
But it does matter, doesn't it?
Exactly. And this fire in me said, I have a responsibility to the gifts and the talents that I have been shared and downloaded to me, as we all have our own unique space within the world to fill. And this is part of the beginning. And I knew it was something massive. Yeah. And I was right, because it's now going on to do other massive things on a much broader scale. So when you know that, it's, but it's are we willing to level up? Are we willing to take that chance to jump into the fire? There's that Mountain Araya player. It doesn't interest me, whether you have loads of money, but are you willing to jump into that fire and hold that hand with me and say that you're by my side? It's roughly kind of one of the things that she says. But, and I had to really say, am I on my side as well? Am I going to jump with me? And the second thing that you mentioned was like Katie Mitchell talking about self-care. I mean, I cannot tell you the amount of times I spoke about self-care in the beginnings of the pandemic. And why mentoring is so important to me, Franciska, because those are the things that when I speak to artists and directors and conductors and the people that I actually mentor, that's the last thing on their list, because they're thinking, oh, I just want to be this and I just want to get to here. And, but no interest has been taken in what food is going to support your body in order for you to be at that space. What rest time do you need in order for you to think, so you can actually have that creative inspiration that you're so desperately looking for?
Absolutely.
It's that self-care piece is so thank you, Franciska. Really, really, really important. And Siv Irene Misund. Siv, she's saying, so happy to start my morning with two of my favorite women. So inspirational. Well, you are one of our favorite women.
Oh my God.
She's just not only is she an incredible mezzo. I mean, she's got this voice that I haven't heard that kind of shape or color of in a long time. But she's such a dedicated artist. Somebody who's willing to also think outside the box and is not afraid of doing the work. And I love her for that. Absolutely love her for that. And then you've got Hugh Clifford. Just a thought for you both. Any idea as to how so many people who are otherwise shy or reserved are drawn to the stage or performing in public, and in many cases go on to be successful?
Oh, that's
an interesting
question. Well, I'm actually not sure if I know the answer to that. I have been thinking about that, because there are a lot of actors, Hugh is right, are very introverted. And, some of them, I think Mark Strong, I really like Mark Strong. He talked about how people ask him at dinner parties to entertain people, and he feels very. So I think it's about escapism, surely, and it's almost like a Olympic sportsmen. They don't run all the time. They train to run, but that's not. I don't think that's what they do in their real life, if you know what I mean. So I think it's about it's probably separating the two. And also, one thing that I think is really important, I always enjoy to watch actors who aren't there, or even singers who aren't there for themselves, rather than they're there for the work. I think Hamlet, we talked a lot about, because they were in these cubicles or whatever behind this glass, and they didn't really get that energy from the audience. And I kind of had to veer them more towards the actual work. Like, what are you actually saying? Everything has more weight when you don't get that instant reaction from the audience. They really are. It's a very terrifying task. They're just looking at themselves in the reflection of the glass. They don't see their partners even. They're just acting out, and it feels very bizarre. They don't really get to feel what the audience is feeling until the last clap, really. So I think that means that surely it's more about the work, and that's true to directors as well. It's never about you, it's more about the work. So it shouldn't be about you shining. And I think people who are shy don't like to shine anyway. It's more the actual work shining through you. You're almost like a vessel. So you don't get in the way of the truth that you are saying or singing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would also love to answer to that as well, is that I'm an introverted extrovert. So when people see me, they think all the time, she's this big character, da, 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 da. But when I'm at home, I'm quite submissive, I'm quite shy, I'm quite quiet, and da, 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 da. So, you know, when I go on stage, that introverted part of me has a space to live with permission, I suppose, you know, in a way that I would never live outside or in another world. And it allows me to investigate parts of myself that I wouldn't normally be able to do in other parts of my life. So I think there are many reasons, and we're just saying two possible reasons, but there are so many, know. Yeah, you know, I know some people. I've got a wonderful friend. Oh my gosh, her name's going to escape me now. I can see her face. But, you know, you just tell her to sing and she's like, there, in a second. Doesn't even think about it in any shape, form or size. So she just knows she's meant to be on stage. You know, that's just her thing. So, you know, but if you were to see her maybe to talk about something else, she'd be really, really shy. So it's different for everybody. But please, let's go back to socially distanced theatre, because you've got so many other things to share with us.
So I guess what my experience taught me is, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this later when you ask about what are the tips that I've learned. Is that it was really like going into a project blindly without knowing what was possible, and also government rules changed by the week, which is very similar to now. I think we will probably have to carry on making this kind of work for a long time, only because even after you are vaccinated, you know, you still have to be careful. And also you don't want to become in a very situation where you can only hire people who are vaccinated, because that's an access problem. That means that we are favoring people who had access to a vaccine over people who haven't. So I really, really hope that's not the industry we're about to step into, because I think that's very important. So in a way, you want to create also working environment, but also a work that is equal for everyone, and everyone feels safe in it. And I think for that, you have to kind of look around you. So there's a lot of theater that's being made digitally, and there's distancing. But there's a lot of people who work with that digital distancing in a very interesting way, like Death Center. I don't know if anyone saw To Be a Machine, but for me, that was one of the most exciting experiences of 2020. You upload yourself onto an iPad as an audience member, and then they put you in the audience. And you actually, and it's not live, but you do see yourself through the live stream that, oh, there I am. And there's different reactions you have to record. And I talked to Ben Kidd on our show, and the way they came up with it is just so clever. And it also makes sense in relation to the subject matter. So that's another thing that I think we should think about. Socially distanced theater isn't just throwing a grid on stage and then putting people apart and then now it's socially distanced, or putting a couple of seats out, and then, you know, that's not really imaginative. We are very imaginative people. You know, we can come up with so many things. So learning about tech and what it can do, learning about VR, learning about AR, you know, thinking about how can I keep on making work without putting anyone in danger. I think that's at the core of socially distanced theater. And what we ended up doing was kind of a promenade show of people walking around this. We did it at this stadium. You know, it was when I was looking for a venue, I walked around the city. I've never been there before properly. And I just found this stadium sitting in the middle of this big green space, just sitting there like a I don't know, like a spaceship. And I remember, like, I don't even know why, but I just want to make it here. And I looked around it. It's like, what an interesting building. Like, what an incredible experience to just come to a stadium. I've never been to a football game in my entire life. I was like, and to see a show, you know, to see these different windows into people's homes. And I was thinking maybe homes, because I was thinking if they're behind glass, then we can light it and it could have higher production value than doing it outside. So I was thinking maybe if they're mic'd up and we're outside. And then I was thinking, what play should we do? And I thought a lot about classics like Greeks and Shakespeare, because people know that, you know, they know that story. So if it's done in a different way, they can still follow it easier. And then that's how we came to Hamlet, because obviously in Hamlet, you have so many things about ears. You know, that's how Claudius murders his brother by pouring the poison in the ear, and that's how the ghost appears. But Hamlet is like, did you hear it speak? That's really important. There's a lot of eavesdropping from Polonius, so there was a lot of things about ears. And I just came to the AD and I said, I think I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do Hamlet at the stadium with headphones, and this is what we're going to do. And they instantly were so flexible. This is another thing. We were very lucky that they had a rep system. So they had an in-house company. They had creatives already in place, so they could bring them in and be like, let's start making. I think we rehearsed the whole thing in 5 weeks, maybe. That included reducing it to 80 minutes, make it walkable, having the composer on board, this amazing sound artist, Bocciardi Magor, or in English, Magor Bocciardi. He came in and had these incredible sounds. I said, the sound is really important. It will be almost like a separate character in the ears. So he created this with a trumpet, I think, and a violin and electronics. That's it. The incredible sound world. So I was very lucky to have a team that was very keen on making it work. They didn't know what it was. We were rehearsing in a completely different building, and they were a bit confused, like inside, outside. But then when we went to the venue, I think something clicked for everyone. And that's another thing about when you make new work that's a bit different, you're the one who believes in it. So you have to keep on pushing. You're the one, everyone will look to you and ask questions you didn't expect, like, you kind of have to think of everything. You have to think of I spent so much time just thinking about how will the sound team get from A to B. That's a technical issue, isn't it? I was thinking about how will we light it so we actually can use those lights in a different way as well. You have to think of everything. And then there will be things that you haven't thought of, like people stopping by and actually watching the show without headphones, just random people who didn't buy a ticket, just chilling. And I guess they're allowed to because they don't hear the words. Actually, let me share you something that was so beautiful. We've had this pandemic going on for months. I didn't know if I'm ever going to work again. We had this very intense rehearsal period, and we opened, and I was wearing my headphones listening to the show, and my dramaturg just said, take off your headphones for a second. And I did. And what I saw was 50 people, strangers, sitting on these chairs outside in the complete dark, not even a word, not even saying anything, just looking towards this glass panel where nothing is really happening, just tiny movement and quiet. And that's all I saw because I took my headphones off. And what that gave me is just an experience of an audience in complete isolation. It was so magical. I was like, will we ever get to come together and see stuff together? Will strangers ever assemble? And I saw 50 people there, and it gave me goosebumps. I was like, you know what? It was worth it.
So it became like two shows. It became an auditory perspective, and it became a visual meditative perspective as well.
Well, I saw a version of it that probably audiences didn't see, which is just me watching them. That was my
so three, so an observer perspective
because
as well.
it was almost like, that's another thing actually. Social distance theater shouldn't be just about the distancing. Your solution should also be very interesting. This show without headphones doesn't work because you don't hear anything, and it's not that exciting. And it's only when you put the sound world on and you marry it with the visual is when it actually becomes a show. So whatever you come up with, make sure that it's safe, but also make sure it's worth watching. Make sure that it's not just a link you could catch from online and just, because there's so much material online as well. Like, why this show? Why does it have to be theater, and why does it have to happen now? I think that's really important.
Yeah, but I also want to just hold you to the fact that what you just said. You said without headphones it doesn't work, but actually it did work without headphones. Otherwise you wouldn't have had 50 people sitting there.
But they were all wearing headphones.
Oh, the ones that weren't. Oh, okay. I thought you said they were sitting there, but they weren't hearing headphones. Oh, sorry. I apologize.
No. I the whole audience was, they were all wearing headphones, and there were some passerbys who just stopped for a while to check out what's going on. So it looked interesting, but obviously they didn't understand a thing because it was complete silence if you didn't have actually the access.
Okay, I apologize. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for clarification. Can you just clarify, Judith, can you understand the Hungarian of that or
Yeah, that is my mother, just saying hi.
Oh, hello, Mum.
I think she just wants me to shout out for the award we got nominated. She's right, I should talk about this because the whole team worked really hard on this. The whole experience was wild, and someone from Highlights of Hungary came to see it. Now, this award is very interesting because they nominate people without categories. So we got nominated alongside the National Ambulance Service, or people like who talk about food or innovation or tech. And then there was this theater show. So it was very interesting how we were very, very lucky to be nominated. And I think it's down to the team and the actors, being able to come together and make something together, and the trust they gave me. I mean, if you think about it, I was just a random no-name person who came from London, who's never worked in Hungary before. And I'm not putting myself down because I know what I brought to the table, but no one else did. So they had to trust me a lot. And they were like, okay, headphones, okay, okay, moving around, audience is moving. And they threw themselves in it 100% from day one. Everyone brought so much to the table. I think Iboya Mesaros, who was playing Ophelia, I think we went through the mad scene in 20 different ways. We tried to have a way in. She did so. She sang this as Janet Joplin, and as Freddie Mercury. We were, what if she's burying flowers? We did so many, and she was constantly trying to solve it. And I said, this is part of the process. I'm going to hold you. You can't fail because their stakes are not high. We're just exploring what Ophelia could be together. And they all did their homework. They all really went full in. And I'm so, so grateful for that because it couldn't have happened without such an amazing team.
Oh, thank you. I love what you say there. And I love what you alluded to here and in the last part of what we spoke about, which myself and Darren Abrahams called conscious creative leadership. Yeah. So as a creative leader, you really, really, really do have to hold the vision. You have to hold this vision. It's so important, because it's the vision that people go to see someone standing still in, that they can then input and give new frequency and have new ideas and play and dance around. But there's a foundation for them to play within. I think that's so important, and that the point of a leader is A, to go first, but B, also to keep holding that vision, no matter how challenging things get, but to keep holding the vision and to know when the vision needs tweaking. It's so, so important.
Yeah, the vision tweaking, actually, I have a story about that as well, because as you may know, Hamlet dies in the end, spoiler alert, and it happens in a fencing scene. And I remember the choreographer, Gabor Katona, was like, I'm going to make the fencing scene, just some movement, come and check at the end. And I was like, great, came back at the end. And it was so, intense and meticulous, and they fight, and they start struggling on the ground, and like really amazing scene. And I watch it and I say, that's brilliant. Now, can we see the same thing 3 meters apart? He was looking at me like, but he did it. That's the thing. He said, yeah, I mean, that's a bit weird fencing apart, but we ended up following it with some symbols. So you get that sound in your ears, and they're doing the movements exactly the same. They're just apart, so that was the thing of how to keep it distance. And, no one was really sick that's another thing. No one was actually sick because this was very early days in the pandemic. Hungary shut down very early. We had very low numbers. But it doesn't matter, because you want to create something that can be revived again and again. And you want something from a business point of view as well, that can be it can come back even when restrictions come back again. So you have to think ahead as well, which I'm sure you're familiar with, creating your own show. How will we be able to do this? Will it translate good live or live streamed if we have to live stream it? Can we, as you say, tweaking all the time, thinking, it's never really done because the rules are changing about COVID as well. And there are new studies about aerosol studies, and you have to be kind of, as a director, you have to read about that stuff. I never thought I would, but you have to be tuned in to be able to make work that is responding to the now and also safe in the now.
Yeah, and responsible as well. I mean, the two directors, one you've already mentioned that I did my socially distanced operas with was Katie Mitchell at the Royal Opera House. We did The New Dark Age, and also with Daisy Evans at Scottish Opera, we did Hansel and Gretel. And so those two concepts were always, you had to think about that safety and the responsible element of those things. And actually, as directors, they were really good at looking at, especially Katie, in the terms of, what do you feel comfortable, making sure we felt comfortable to do the work in the way that the work was doing. And she was very good at checking, are we in the boundaries of, what is safe? Yeah. She would always ask that question, so it was a slower process, but, and we only had 2 weeks to make the work, so it was, in both cases, so it's one of those things where I think you're right. We are going to have to be taking all of those things into consideration, and it's not just the responsibility of the director to make themselves informed, but the responsibility of everybody in the room to make themselves informed as much as they possibly. It is a collective responsibility. I do believe now, with the socially distanced spaces that we're moving into, we have to move away from me and walk into the we. I mean, it's so important that we're all connected and we all kind of have a knock-on effect or an impact on each other. And that the only way that this work stays alive and stays exciting is if we come together consciously and really make a stand for what we believe in, how we wish to work, how we wish to show up, and the boundaries that we create together within which to work with. So I'm really excited. Are there any other companies that you'd like to highlight, just before I go into your tips around the social distance work that you've been looking at?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's obviously going to be so much more than what I'm aware of. So please do your research. There's so many people that are making incredible work, and a lot of houses in Europe are still open and still rehearsing. So there's definitely like information out there now, things I didn't have access to back in May. So Death Center is definitely my big shout out, as I mentioned. The Encounter was something that I think everyone kind of wanted to see, and if they didn't, they probably did see at the Barbican, Simon McBurney's piece. But actually what was really brilliant is that when COVID happened, they kind of made a prelude to that with a green screen. So Simon McBurney is kind of like talking about how you could be in this theater, but you're not. It takes his green screen off, and then suddenly you're in his home, and like, wow, and that's a really good show that really translated cleverly onto screen, because it's a binaural piece. So it's one of those, heads with the mics. So when he moves around, it does sound like you are actually, it's a surround system sound. So that's very, very clever. I recently had the chance to talk to Katie Lipson, who produced this musical called Contact, which was people walking around the streets of London. And that was a musical, a socially distanced musical. And then there's loads of houses. That's another thing I wanted to talk about. Opera houses that are thinking of moving outdoors this summer, creating tents or arranging places so people can actually sit outside. And that, what a great challenge for us to start thinking about it as directors. Like, what would you like to make in a tent? How would you make that happen? So I think people have to think. You have to go to these houses and say, I have this crazy idea. And who knows, you might have, that might be your selling point, your unique selling point, that you came up with something that is socially distanced. I truly believe that this will be something that we'll have to battle for a long time. I don't think coming back to theaters will be as smooth as we want it to be. This is a sad reality, but I think the sooner we accept that, the better the work will become, because that means you're working with, maybe you're working with tech, or maybe you're working outside, but you're definitely doing something to produce work for people that is in the now, and you can only make it now. I mean, what an incredible chance to make something that can only be made now, and can probably only be made by you, because it's your idea. When the pandemic hit, I kept thinking this. I have the same problem as the artistic director of the Royal Opera House. It's COVID. So it doesn't matter who you are. You're battling the same beast. It was almost like an equal playing field. Like, what will people think? Your E&O drive-through. What an incredible idea, wasn't it? That you can just go in your car and watch an opera from your car. why haven't we done that before? You know, maybe this will open up new forms of making. And I think we need that. We need that for theatre and for opera to be alive.
Oh, really brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So listen, so your tips, give us your 3 tips for anybody wishing to do socially distanced theatre.
Well, we kind of talked about it, all of them, but like maybe a summary. So one is look at what is possible, and that is what is possible around you in the world, and also what is possible now. So what kind of tech do you have access to? What can you make it within the realms of what is possible. You don't want it to be over ambitious, because then it will fall apart, and tech will always let you down. You know, tech will always go wrong. So have a safety thing for that. If that does happen, if everything goes and the machine stops, what will happen to your show? So have a plan B for that.
Now, can I just in that one, because you just said look at what is possible. I just wanted to go back to something I heard you say earlier, which was when I thought I would never work again. Okay. So I never understood when any artist said that, because I was like, you're an artist. You're always going to be an artist. You were born an artist. You're going to die an artist. So I never understood that for me. So when within that context, because I think there's going to be some people that really need to hear this, within that context of looking at what's possible, when somebody's feeling like they're never going to work again, can you just speak to someone in that vein around looking at what is possible?
Yes. The reason why this is hard is because obviously different people will have different coping mechanisms, and this is not just mentally challenging, but also financially challenging for a lot of us. So actually being able to work, I think, is a privilege. If you got asked to do something, you're probably in a top percent, because I totally fully understand that as someone who actually got the chance to make work last year. And unfortunately, some people will feel that they don't have the financial stability to wait in the wings and for theatre to come back. So if someone does say that I don't think I can work again, I think I don't want to say to them, you know, to be very positive, because I don't know what sort of financial situation they're in, and I don't know how disillusioned they are about the arts. But I think what you said is very true, is that your mindset you can still make art. That is something that you were meant to do. And that is also something that I think a lot of us have been doing these Zoom workshops, and it's really incredible to see, you know, everyone will have a terrible day and they will just call you, and then you will have a terrible day and you'll call them. And it's almost like we're throwing support around in this like big group of people. And I think, so I guess that would be my tip, is just to call people and talk about your experience, preferably people who have had the same experience, and talk to them. I mean, you mentioned in my show that you talk to mentors. That's such a good tip. Just reach out to anyone who you trust and say, I've been feeling these things. I feel like I want to quit, and talk it through. And I think if someone does approach you, I want to quit, don't say, don't quit immediately. Listen to why they're saying that, because maybe it is more healthy and better for them to actually leave the arts. We don't know, but you have to listen to those reasons. I think you're absolutely right that what is possible is not just what you have at your disposal, but what you are feeling. And I think when I said that cliff moment, I generally was feeling that, but the reason why I didn't jump is because I knew I had the strength to actually make it. I mean, this sounds very over dramatic, but it really did feel like the end of the world, and then suddenly I'm making a theater show. You know, it was pressure, and it was hard. So again, the people who were around me really lifted me, and I got so much support. The fact that I can just call someone or text them, and I would get creatives and non-creatives support back. I would say that's the biggest thing. Talk to someone, reach out, and be honest.
Thank you so much, Franciska, because I really, the message that I really hear as well, and the message that I would like to say to artists who are feeling like they'll never work again or are disillusioned, is the fact that this is a moment in time that if you need to divert yourself to do something other than what you've always done, because you need to financially look after yourself, there is no shame in that.
Yeah.
B, that artist within you will never, ever, ever be taken from you. It is a gift that you will have until the day your last breath is taken away from you. So if it's not now, it will be later. And you have that choice to come back to it later. There are artists that started in television at the age of 60.
Yep.
Like literally started their careers in television at the age of 60. And so I just, there's another woman also, I think she did it at the age of 80. She started, and for 5 years until she died, she was an actress, so I know it's that thing of, and look for those stories. Look for what is perceived to be out of the norm, but that actually happens all the time, of people that become inspired again by the artists within them. Musicians who used to play the piano or the guitar, but had to have a bypass because something happened, but know that you can always return home.
Yes.
That your artist is part of your home within you. Yeah. So please, please, please know that anything is possible. And you might have a blip right now, but we are all here standing with you. I think that's really, really important. Thank you so much, Franciska, for being so brave to be open to answer that question, because it's a tough one,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So your second tip.
My second tip, think about your audience. You should always think about your audience. Hopefully, you're never going to get to a point where you're like, yeah, I made a thing. So always think about the audience, but this comes down to empathy, actually, which I think you mentioned as well, that you have to understand that some people will take a risk by going to the theater, no matter how well you make it safe. That will probably be difficult for a lot of people, especially if they have been taking very conscious decisions of being careful. So your work has to be worth it, for people to come and see it. And it's about the me to we, what you said. It's not about you. It's about the work you're making. How are you actually contributing to the actual conversations that are happening now by presenting this work? And I don't think you should make a show about Zoom or COVID, because that's not what I'm suggesting. I think there will be enough of that anyway. I think people will be making that work anyway. But it's something that actually talks to our experience as audience members, as people, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to assemble to see your show, strangers together. So what does it feel like to be there? How can you, what are the peripheries? If it's socially distanced, there will probably be less good seats, which happened with Hamlet. I had to rejig a little bit so it's equal for everyone. Just because it's safe shouldn't be a worse seat in the show. Or like, if the headphones are they accessible? Is your tech accessible? So think about your audience and always have them in your mind until, even beyond opening. So I think that's the second tip. Socially distanced theater should always consider safety and vision of audience.
Yeah, because they're also the people that keep our work alive as well.
Exactly. Thank you for sticking with us, audiences.
Yes,
thank you.
Yes, yeah, they're fundamental to their work. They really don't realize how important they are. They really don't. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so thank you for that tip. I'm just going to read a few of these before you do your third tip.
Yep.
Hugh said, thank you for the reply on the question. It's good to hear your thoughts on it. I often wondered about that. And Konali Borowski, he says, so cool to hear you chatting there. Yeah, thanks both. Hugh Clifford has said, just to ask Franciska as to what her go-to piece of music or song is, if she cares to share, Nadine. You can have a think about that. Alison Rayner is saying, if not now, it may be later. You will always be an artist till the day you die. Very inspiring, as always. Thank you, Alison. Lovely that you heard that. Thank you. And Steve Irene Mizon said, thank you for speaking to my soul this morning. Love all of this. Thank you all for commenting. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. So before you get to your piece of music, tell us your third tip.
Okay, my third tip. Here we go. Lay down the rules in the rehearsal room and stick to them. Lay down the rules and stick to them. As you said, it's not your responsibility to come up with these rules. The house inviting you to make the work should probably have rules already. And we know much more about COVID now, so there will probably be protocol. But in Hungary, there are people still rehearsing in masks, and I talk to actors, and they say some of them started acting with their eyebrows a lot because they're so frustrated that they can't emote, and it's hard work. So if you are using masks, when are the break times? Are you thinking about your actors? Can it be sustained? Because the rules you place down at the beginning, whether that's spiking areas, opening windows, working outside, wearing masks or visors, they have to be consistent, and they have to be easy enough so you can keep them, because week 2, some masks slip, you get frustrated. You can't afford to do that really, because you're just as much in danger as in week 1. All that's happening is that we're humans, and human behavior, we tend to like forget about, it's fine, start hugging, that happens. And how do we stop that from happening? It's a sad brutality that we can't actually rehearse the way we usually do. But you do have a responsibility for yourself as well to keep yourself safe and everyone else around you. So lay down the rules and stick to them.
Yeah, and respect them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're there for everyone. And if you don't respect the rules, you stop other work from being made as well.
What a great way to put it. Exactly. Like, do you just want to have a relaxed rehearsal now, or do you want to carry on working? Because you're right. That's the cost, really, sadly.
Yeah, exactly. So, answer Hugh's question, just to ask Franciska as to what her go-to piece of music or song is, if she cares to share.
I don't actually have a go-to, because of my Spotify, I share it with my brother. So that means that we have a list of classical music, which is his part, and then very, very cheesy pop music, which is my part. So whatever I shuffle just comes up. It's a mystery. I do know that to rev myself up, which is very weird and such an opera thing to do, I sometimes shower to Verdi's Aida. I don't know. It works. Don't listen. I just listen to March and I'm like, I can do the day. It's there. So maybe that.
I love it. I'd never ever expected you to say it's a role that I love, Aida, and you mentioned 2 of my favorite things, Aida and Verdi, in the same. Verdi is my composer, and Aida is one of the more operas that I've sung and loved. So thank you very much. I love that. Never expected you to say that. So great question, Hugh, because you've made us laugh before the end of the show. And Steve as well. I can't wait. Steve is who I really. Oh my gosh! Right, I'm putting it into the universe now. Franciska, you are going to be directing Aida. I am Aida, and Steve is Amneris.
Yes. Oh my God, I'm ready.
We just spoke that. Yes, we just spoke that into existence. I don't know how it's happening, but I'm letting you know now that is.
I'm going to start working on it right now. Let's do it. I mean, Steve is like, just a little shout out to Steve. We've already done so much love for Steve, but I just really want to say, like, Steve is the kind of opera singer who comes so prepared and has so many thoughts, like an actor, and that is definitely what you want. When you get that kind of singer in the room, you're like, oh, she's doing her homework. She wants to be there. Yes, like, I'm so excited by that. So I think you two together on stage, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Oh, so are we. So tell us, how can we find you? Tell me.
Okay, so I am Franciska_E on Twitter. I retweeted this, so you'll probably find me through those channels. And then I'm eFranciska on Instagram. And then my website is www.franciskaery.com.
Franciskaery.com.
It's with a K. You nearly got it.
Oh no! Yes, I did it the second time.
Yeah, no, the Twitter is the one that's with a KA. Yeah, but otherwise. Yeah. I'm sure they'll find their way.
Yeah. Steve says she's blushing now. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure everybody would agree that it was so great, actually, and even I started this session a little bit sad. Remember, I was saying, but now I just feel happy because
mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished, and that's what I'm saying. If you're willing to stay in the room with your feelings, they just pass through. When we're trying to avoid them, that's when we find ourselves getting even more tense and more upset and When we just state them and allow them to be, they move through, because you know what, we're humans. You know, we're evolutionary humans, you know. So Hugh is saying, thanks for taking the time during your discussions to answer my questions. Great positivity from both you ladies this morning. Good to see you both laugh. It's been a lovely stream this morning. Thank you, Hugh. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Franciska, for being here. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. And you're so incredible, Nadine, for doing this. Thank you so much for bringing this show into the world. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, not at all. Thank you for being in the world. And I love your, I mean, yeah, you're just, you're stunning. So please, 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 I wish you so much wellness. I wish you so much opportunity and light and abundance and prosperity. You deserve it. Let it come your way. Honoring you. Take care. Celebrating you. Celebrating everyone here this morning. Over and out. See you later.
Bye,
Bye-bye.